In the vast expanse of our skies, unexplained sightings continue to baffle even the most skeptical minds. From glowing orbs to craft-defying known physics, these aerial anomalies challenge our understanding of the world. In this video, we'll explore perplexing cases that have left researchers scratching their heads. What are these phenomena? Natural occurrences, advanced technology, or something beyond our comprehension? Join us as we delve into the evidence and theories behind these enigmatic sightings that continue to elude scientific explanation.
Now, resources. They're what human beings have been fighting over since the dawn of time. Resources mean life or death. And in space travel, water, food, and oxygen are limited. It's one of the main reasons why prolonged space travel has been so tough to figure out. One of the biggest fears is running out of oxygen. Spacecraft rely on complex life support systems to generate oxygen from water, but any malfunction could lead to a shortage. And the thought of being stranded in the black void of space, slowly running out of air, knowing there's no way help can reach you in time, is pretty terrifying. Astronauts also need water, not just for drinking, also for cooking and hygiene. In space, water has to be carefully recycled from every possible source, including urine and sweat. Yes, sending water up into space is expensive, as is, so astronauts on the ISS are already working with a short supply, so imagine being out deep into space. The fear here is that any failure in the recycling system could deplete the water supply, and then of course we have food. Gotta make sure there's enough food to last the entire journey. Space food is specifically prepared to stay edible for long periods, but if supplies were to somehow run out or become contaminated, they'd be screwed. And again, this is more manageable on the ISS, so close to Earth, but if a manned crew was deep out into space, a resupply would of course take a much longer time to reach them. There have even been situations on the International Space Station where there have been delays that have happened with supplies of food and water. Rockets have been sent up from Earth, but stuff's gone wrong and supplies have been delayed getting there. It can be a real issue. All right, in shows like Star Trek, it always seems like space is just this empty void you can just fly through no problem until you come in contact with another ship or a planet, but things wouldn't be quite as smooth sailing in real life. Space is full of debris. You have micrometeoroids, for example, which are tiny particles of rock or metal that travel through space at extremely high speeds, and even though they're small, they can cause serious damage if they collide with a spacecraft or spacesuit. Imagine traveling millions of miles from Earth, knowing that at any moment a tiny invisible particle could just puncture the hull of your ship. Even closer to Earth, we have leftover pieces of old satellites and discarded rocket parts and stuff. Most of it is still orbiting around Earth, and there have been situations where stuff has crashed into the International Space Station. Unlike larger objects that can be tracked and avoided, smaller threats are harder to detect and can hit without warning. And forget the ship, what if a spacesuit is punctured during a spacewalk? NASA does use shielding to help protect against debris, but it's impossible to eliminate the risk altogether. One of the biggest dangers to human health is extreme temperatures, and space can be extremely cold or intensely hot, with no atmosphere to moderate the temperature. Objects in space can experience temperatures from hundreds of degrees below zero to hundreds of degrees above, depending on their exposure to the sun. In deep space, when an object is in direct sunlight, it can get incredibly hot, but in the shadow of a planet or when the sun is blocked, temperatures can plummet. And this drastic difference in temperature can happen really quickly, which can be a big problem for both astronauts and their equipment. For astronauts, it's spacewalks where this can be the most dangerous. Spacesuits are designed to protect against fluctuations in temperature, but any malfunction or damage to the suit and you could suffer from hyperthermia or hypothermia. And for the spacecraft, well, temperature changes cause things to expand and contract. So if we did happen to be on a massive journey deep into space, who knows what the constant expansion and contraction would do to the ship over time. Another concern is gravitational anomalies, regions of space with unexpected gravitational forces that could trap a spacecraft in a dangerous zone. Space is unpredictable. The idea of encountering regions where the gravitational pull is stronger or weaker than anticipated is a real concern. This could cause the ship to veer off course, or worse, it could get caught in a gravitational trap almost like a whirlpool, like just stuck in orbit, leaving everyone stranded, floating in orbit until all the food and water runs out. Very scary thought. Another dangerous aspect of space travel is the exposure to harmful radiation. Not sure if you're aware of this, but human beings aren't really built for flying through space. We, as well as everything else on this planet, is perfectly suited for Earth. The atmosphere and magnetic field protect us from harmful cosmic and solar radiation, but in space, there is no protection. Astronauts are constantly bombarded by high-energy particles, and radiation exposure can cause immediate and long-term health issues. There's a chance of radiation sickness, which causes nausea, vomiting, and fatigue, which sucks on its own, but it can also impair an astronaut's ability to perform tasks. And in space, where one wrong move can spell disaster, that's a bit of a problem. Long-term exposure is even more concerning. Over time, radiation can damage DNA, increasing the risk of cancers or even genetic mutations. The possibility of developing cancer years after a mission is a risk astronauts decide to take on. It's not just an astronaut's health radiation can affect, though, but their equipment as well. Radiation can interfere with the electronics on a spacecraft, causing malfunctions. This would be especially dangerous in deep space, where help would be far away and repairs would have to be made with whatever resources the crew would have on hand. Malfunction in navigation, communication, or, heaven forbid, life support systems would be catastrophic. Now, NASA spacecrafts are designed with shielding to protect against radiation and limit the time astronauts spend in space to reduce exposure, but no matter how much we prepare, the dangers of radiation in deep space are always a threat because things won't always go as planned. And solar flares could make things even worse. Sudden bursts of radiation from the sun can be difficult to predict. Sleep is just as essential to us as food and water, and sleep can be a bit of a problem in space. We've evolved here on Earth with a day and night cycle. It's built into our bodies to be awake during the day and asleep at night. And when that sleep cycle gets messed up, we get messed up. If you ever spent all day at school and then worked all through the night, you know how detrimental it is to your physical and mental health over time, and it really doesn't take that long. In space, where there's no natural day-night cycle, astronauts can struggle to keep up with a healthy sleep pattern. I mean, the lights are always on, and there's no real sense of time passing, not to mention they sleep upright. The disruption to the body's internal clock can lead to insomnia, fatigue, irritability, or worse. And on top of that, you have the other effects of space travel, like muscle atrophy, and poor sleep can just make this even worse. Then your immune system is weakened, making you more susceptible to illness. So yeah, long duration missions are a big risk. An obvious danger of exploring the far reaches of space is, of course, encountering other life forms. It would be cool, or at least it could be. It could also be an absolute worst case scenario. With billions of galaxies and potentially trillions of planets, the possibility of encountering extraterrestrial life, whether intelligent or not, is a fun idea. But what could these life forms be like? How might they interact with us? We often picture highly advanced and intelligent aliens bent on world domination, like in War of the Worlds, but the motivations of a potential extraterrestrial species are completely unknown. Even unintelligent life forms could be dangerous. Maybe they'd be hostile in a wild animal kind of way. And even if they weren't, another concern is the potential for biological contamination, beings that carry viruses or illnesses that we have no way of dealing with. If astronauts came in contact with alien microbes or organisms, there is a risk that these life forms could, hitch a ride with us back to Earth and then cause even more problems. Being millions or even billions of miles away from Earth means complete isolation, aside from the other astronauts on your crew. Isolation and the psychological impact of it has to be one of the most daunting things about deep space travel. Not only is there no immediate help for emergencies, but the extreme isolation can take a pretty heavy toll on an astronaut's mental health. I mean, this is already something that's known to happen. And if we were to start traveling deeper and deeper into the abyss, this would become an even bigger issue. To be confined in a small spacecraft for months or even potentially years with only a few other people for company, the sense of loneliness can be overwhelming. Communication with Earth would be delayed and limited, and the monotony of space travel would also just be mentally exhausting. Seeing the same small group of idiots in the same environment well, they're not idiots, they're astronauts for God's sakes, but you start to feel like they're idiots, I imagine, after a while. Everyone gets on your nerves eventually. And, no option to step outside for a breath of fresh air, or just to change the scenery. It's just black, and then stars, and then gotta be incredibly claustrophobic. Now, astronauts know what they're getting into, and they train for this, of course, but can any amount of training really prepare you for potentially spending years out there? The fear of the unknown is one of humanity's greatest fears, and we know basically nothing about what is truly out there in the far reaches of space. Look at how many ships have met tragic ends exploring the ocean. The dangerous storms, the wildlife, the treacherous currents. Who the hell knows what horrors are out in space? We can predict some of the dangers we could face in space, like on this list, but there is still stuff that's unexplained. The bursts of energy, anomalies in space-time, unidentified objects of some kind. Stuff we just can't fully explain or even comprehend. Stuff we can never prepare for before we come face to face with it. And unfortunately, the first ones to find out likely won't make it home to tell the tale. Scientifically known as KIC 8462852, which I think is a much catchier title. Tabby Star, just a bit of a mouthful. But it's become pretty popular in recent years. Astronomers have spotted unusual and irregular dimming patterns on the star. The star's brightness dims unpredictably, and at times way more than what's expected for your typical star. So because of the strangeness that seems to be going on with this star, it's led some to speculate that there could be alien megastructures on it. And yes, even scientists are saying it's a possibility. I know it sounds wild, but the idea is that advanced extraterrestrial civilizations might be constructing massive structures like Dyson spheres or swarms around the star. And the purpose of these hypothetical megastructures could be to intentionally block or harvest the star's light to be used as energy. This would cause the dimming effect that we see. Now, this is just one speculative hypothesis. There are others, but it's pretty cool to think that this may be a genuine sign of life out there in space. Next, let's talk about fast radio bursts. So fast radio bursts, or FRBs, are powerful, fleeting signals from deep space that last just a fraction of a second, up to 3 seconds at the most. Scientists use radio telescopes to detect these bursts, but they're still not exactly sure what causes them. One theory is that FRBs could be born from cataclysmic events like collisions between neutron stars and black holes, creating ripples in space-time that generate these intense signals. And there is also the possibility that they come from advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. What makes FRBs so strange, though, is the amount of energy that they send out. In just a millisecond, these bursts release as much energy as our sun emits in 3 entire days. And what's frustrating, though, is that they appear so sporadically, it's really tough to sit down and study them. So while there are possibilities as to what could be causing these signals, they're still pretty much a complete mystery. The Great Attractor. Now that sounds like some cosmic horror right there, and it kinda is. The Great Attractor is a massive gravitational area of the universe that's pulling our Milky Way galaxy and numerous other galaxies toward it. And yeah, that's kind of scary. The Great Attractor was first identified in the 70s when scientists noticed that our Milky Way, along with other galaxies around us, weren't moving in the direction that gravitational forces alone could explain. Something massive and hidden seemed to be tugging at everything. Now, we can't directly see the Great Attractor, so astronomers have to rely on indirect observations and measurements to understand its existence. It's this unseen force of nature, very Lovecrafty. It's thought to be a concentration of both visible and dark matter, which is the invisible substance that makes up a large part of the universe. More on that later. So what happens though when we eventually get pulled into whatever this thing is? Luckily we'll be long dead, so no point really worrying about it. But a great cosmic force like this, it really does remind us how small and insignificant we are in the grand scheme of things. Next up we have space orcs. Yes, astronomers have spotted orcs in space. Orc standing for odd radio circles. Not quite as exciting as spotting green goblin monsters in space, but also less alarming. Like, would we really be able to lay our heads down at night and sleep comfortably knowing there were orcs? I don't think so. So odd radio circles. These circles are strange astronomical objects, and scientists aren't entirely sure what causes them. Scientists have spotted them by scanning the sky using radio telescopes. They're basically circular formations and don't match any known astronomical objects or phenomena. They're not galaxies, they're not stars or supernova, they're a total mystery, and because of this, they have the nickname WTF. Now, some scientists think they could be shock waves from cosmic events, like an explosion or a collision that creates ripples that we detect as circles, but they could also come from unknown objects or phenomena we just haven't discovered yet, which is pretty cool. We got a very large space rock coming our way, a mega comet. Now, luckily, it's going to pass us by about 1 billion miles and won't be coming until 2031, but this thing really is massive. This thing, which was first spotted in 2021, is the biggest ever observed comet. It's 100,000 times the mass of your average comet. The comet is so big that at first astronomers categorized it as a minor planet. What's freaky about this is that there's almost definitely much larger comets whizzing around out there, and although this one luckily isn't going to make contact with us, there could be another one hurtling our way as we speak. That just hasn't been spotted yet. Speaking of terrifying things hurtling towards us, let's talk about Andromeda. So Andromeda, the largest and nearest galaxy to our Milky Way, just happens to be on a collision course for it. One day it will collide with the Milky Way, and when the Milky Way and the Andromeda galaxies finally collide, it won't be a sudden smash. The process takes a very long time because of the vast distances between the stars, and stars are so far apart anyway that it's unlikely they'll collide individually. But the night sky will change, constellations will shift, the appearance of the night sky will be very different in the distant future. But this collision won't be happening until billions of years from now, so there's no need to really worry about it affecting life on Earth or even distant descendants of humanity. Fingers crossed we'll have gotten our act together and we'll be like far off on other planets by the time this happens. Next, let's talk about supernovas. Supernovas are incredibly powerful explosions that occur when massive stars reach the end of their lives. Now, the good news is that the nearest star capable of going supernova is still quite a distance away from us. We're talking many light years, but what if a supernova was so powerful that even if it was super far away, it could still affect us? What damage could it cause? Well, it could potentially affect Earth's atmosphere. The explosion releases an enormous amount of energy, including intense radiation, and this radiation, in theory, could interact with Earth's atmosphere, leading to the breakdown of the ozone layer. The ozone layer is crucial for life on Earth because it absorbs the majority of the sun's harmful UV radiation. So, in this situation, we'd be in pretty big trouble. We'd basically burn up like in Terminator 2. Next up, we have the mystery as to what dark matter and dark energy consists of. Now, we know there's a lot of stuff in a galaxy, stars, planets, and gas, but when scientists calculate all the visible matter, it's not enough. The galaxies are spinning faster than they should be, based on what we can see. Something extra is needed to explain this, and that something is called dark matter. Dark matter doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect light, which is why we can't directly see it. It's the invisible scaffolding that's holding the visible parts of the galaxy together. But the invisible part, dark matter and dark energy, makes up 95% of the known universe, and that's a lot of mystery, energy, and matter. What we see, not just on a day-to-day basis here on Earth, but also when we look up at the billions of stars in the sky, that's still just barely even a sliver of reality. The universe is also constantly expanding. We know it's expanding because galaxies are slowly moving away from each other, but over time this expansion continues to speed up. Something is pushing the galaxies apart faster and faster. Scientists refer to this unseen energy as dark energy. Basically, dark matter is the invisible glue holding galaxies together, and dark energy is the mysterious repellent force making the universe expand. And we don't know what it is. Next on the list we have the Tunguska event. This was a powerful explosion that occurred on June 30th of 1908 near the Tunguska River in Siberia, Russia. It's known as one of the most mysterious events in modern history. So there was a large impact or explosion that flattened about 80 million trees over an area of about 830 square miles. The shock wave from the blast was felt thousands of kilometers away. Strangely though, there was no impact crater found at the site. This led scientists to conclude that whatever caused the event must have disintegrated in the Earth's atmosphere before reaching the ground. What most scientists think is that this was caused by the airburst of a large meteoroid or comet. The energy released by the explosion was estimated to be equivalent to 10 to 15 megatons of TNT, making it about 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Luckily, this happened in a very remote area, so only trees were affected, but that also means there weren't many witnesses. But a handful of people did report seeing a bright bluish light in the sky, accompanied by a series of thunderous noises. But of course, there's always been this question as to whether this was caused by a space rock or something else. And finally, I couldn't make this list without discussing the WOW signal. The WOW was a strange radio signal detected by astronomer Jerry Amon in 1977 while he was studying radio waves from space. Because he couldn't make out what the hell the signal was, he just wrote WOW on the printout of the signal, thus it got that name. It was a unique and very strong radio frequency that lasted about 72 seconds and came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. The signal was at a frequency of 1420 megahertz, a frequency that's usually associated with hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. What's strange is that the signal was never detected again though. Scientists naturally figured if it was a natural phenomenon, it would repeat, but from what we know, this was just a one-time thing. So is it possible this signal could have come from maybe an alien spacecraft? Yeah, it's a possibility. The WOW signal is still known as the strongest candidate for extraterrestrial radio transmission ever detected.
At number 10 now, the sound of a black hole. Edward Morgan from MIT collected X-ray data on a distant black hole, then transmitted it into a sound that is audible to humans. The original of this is about 1,000,000 billion times deeper than anything you could ever hear, the deepest note in the universe in fact. But with a little bit of tweaking, here is a sound of an actual black hole, and it's terrifying. Coming out at number 9, we have the Lost Cosmonaut. In 1961, two Italian brothers recorded a signal from space which they claimed was from a secret Soviet space mission. It sounded like a female cosmonaut who was in distress while trying to orbit the Earth. Something had apparently gone wrong. She was complaining of feeling hot as she burned up in the atmosphere. Now the Russians announced that an unmanned craft had burned up in the atmosphere and denied they had any knowledge of the lost cosmonaut. At At number 8 spot now, we have Tabby's star. This mysterious star was discovered by amateur astronomers and found to be about 1,400 light years from Earth. The strange thing was, the brightness of it would dip by 22% for days at a time. Some suggested it was a Dyson sphere, a theoretical alien structure that would enclose a whole star to harvest all of its power. For many years it's been just a sci-fi idea, but Tabby's star seemed to fit this theory very well. At the time of recording, scientists are still carrying out further studies. Coming in at number 7 now, we have 234 stars. In 2016, Canadian astronomers found something very strange within the Milky Way. 234 stars that were blinking at exactly the same rate. Eric Trottier, the astronomer who found this, proposed that the signal was just too much of a coincidence. He thought it was of alien origin. He said that the pulsating signals were caused by an alien civilization flashing a laser in our direction, causing a faint but detectable blip in their star's light. The stars could even be 234 different civilizations pulling together to try and contact us. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the sound of Saturn. In 2002, the Cassini spacecraft passed by the gas giant of Saturn. It listened to the planet's aurora, caused by its huge magnetic field. The signal was way out of human hearing, so they slowed it right down, they compressed it, and this is what they heard. Alright, moving on to number 5 now, we have the Lorimer burst. This signal was detected in 2007 after astronomers dug through 6 years of previous data. Then, they found it. It was a very brief burst of radio emission, just 5 milliseconds in total. The area it came from was 5 to 11 billion light years away from Earth. This means that when the signal left its origin, Earth hadn't even been formed yet, which is mind-blowing. Scientists were shocked to find that whatever made this signal released more energy in that short burst than the sun does in 4 months. Moving on to number 4 now, we have this. It's a very weird name, but it has an incredible story behind it. Scientists detected this signal from an empty area of space with no stars or planet systems near it for about 1,000 light years, from an area between the constellations of Pisces and Aries, and yet a signal came. It was detected as being a short burst at about 1420 megahertz. That's one of the main frequencies at which hydrogen, the most common element in the universe, absorbs and emits energy. Scientists have often thought of using this to contact any aliens out there, and so when we received it, it's drawn a lot of attention. Coming in at number 3 now, we have frequency 4462.3. This signal came from a star only 100 light years from us, and it was a star quite similar to our own. It's called TYC 1220911, and it was nothing out of the ordinary until it did something. The noise it made was just 10 seconds long, but now that it's been adjusted so we can hear it, it's very scary and creepy. Tell me what you think of it. At number 2, we have the cosmic roar. In 2006, a group of California astronomers were trying to detect the very first stars in the universe. Instead, they heard a radio wave roar. What they heard was 6 times louder than the faint signal they expected to detect. In fact, this roar was 6 times greater than the combined emission of all known radio wave sources. And this wasn't the sound of the Big Bang. It was the sound of something mysterious from the start of the universe, something more intense than we've ever encountered. And finally now at number 1, we have the wow signal. What else could it be, really? In 1977, Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope detected the strangest signal ever heard from space. It came from the Sagittarius constellation, and many scientists thought that it sounded like it could be of extraterrestrial origin. It lasted for 72 seconds, and then it was never heard of again. The astronomer who found the signal was so shocked by it that they wrote "wow" in the margin, giving us its name. Now it's been adjusted like some of the other ones so that we can hear it, and this is what it sounds like.
There are tons of weird things people have spotted on satellite images in Antarctica. 2017, this strange dome-like structure was spotted. There were all kinds of conspiracy theories floating around at the time that this could have been something built by some lost ancient civilization or an alien race. There's also this one here. Another dome-looking object which looks to have an opening on the side, almost like some sort of structure built into the ground. A YouTuber named Mr. MBB333 first spotted it. The object looks to be about 150 feet wide and certainly looks man-made to me. As for exactly what it is, I don't know. The entrance to a secret military base, perhaps? Maybe a secret alien base? What's also interesting is that this area is apparently a no-fly zone because of an air sampling camp in the area. Apparently there was also a team of scientists that went missing for a whole week and were picked up from this location by a flight crew. All of that info had been shared by a former naval officer in a letter sent to investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe. Who knows? Who knows what's going on over there?
Next on the list, we have an image captured of Tycho, the zombie star. Now, if you're wondering, what the heck is a zombie star? Allow me to enlighten you. It's a star that died in a fiery explosion and then came back to life by sucking the matter out of other surrounding stars. Now, think about that while keeping in mind that our sun, the thing that gives us life, is also a star. Very nice. Zombie stars are generally referred to as type A supernovas, with a supernova being the biggest explosion that humans have ever seen, each one the extremely bright and super powerful detonation of a single star. So I guess in the simplest of terms available to the space sciences, zombie supernovas are that twice. But that's not even what makes this photo of Tycho so scary. It's the fact that scientists believe that they can use Tycho as a way to practically measure dark energy. While it's currently just a working theory, dark energy is basically an anti-gravity force that fills the universe with negative pressure, expanding and stretching the very fabric of space and time. Think of dark energy as helium filling up a balloon, and the balloon as the universe. The dark energy helium pushes against the parameters of our universe balloon, making it grow bigger and bigger at a very rapid rate. Now, lucky for us, the universe isn't actually a balloon, so we don't really need to worry about it popping, but you might consider what would happen if, due to expansion, our planet became too far away from the sun. Spoiler alert, we would all die.
Kazakhstan is another area of Earth where strange things have been captured on satellite images. In the remote deserts, all these ancient patterns have been spotted, etched into the earth. The geoglyphs are massive, and there are all sorts of shapes: crosses, squares, rings, even swastikas. All have been dug into the ground or made by rocks. The geoglyphs in Kazakhstan are part of what is called the Turgay Trough, an area where over 260 of these mysterious designs have been found. The most famous of these is the Ustugayski Square. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. But it's a large square formation with diagonal lines crossing through it, stretching about 900 feet on each side. And these patterns are believed to be thousands of years old. But as for who made them and why, that's still a mystery. The fact that these patterns have survived for so long, though, is remarkable. Another cool thing, they were virtually unknown until they were spotted from space. They were first spotted in 2007 by a man named Dmitry Day while he was searching through Google Earth's satellite images.
Next up, we have this image of a pumpkin star, a star that spun so fast it actually flattened itself into the shape of a gourd. If you're wondering how the heck this could happen, allow me to explain. You see, pumpkin stars are actually created by the merging of two separate sun-like stars, which is why they spin so fast and create the shape that they do. It's like when two line dancers hook arms and swing each other around the room, using the rotations from the other to improve the speed of their own until they merge into one massive pumpkin-shaped country music fan. Guess it's not exactly like that, but it's pretty similar. Anyways, the rare star, or should I say stars, as astronomers have discovered 18 of these guys since May of 2009, were found using X-ray detection and star mapping, as well as satellites. This worked incredibly well because these Halloween-ready catastrophic supernovas waiting to happen produce X-rays at levels more than 100 times the peak levels of X-ray production ever recorded from our own sun. Oh, and some of these pumpkin stars measure up to 10 times larger than our own sun as well. So let's just put our collective positive energies together and really hope that one of these bad boys doesn't decide to go supernova near our planet anytime soon, because, well, we would probably either die an instant or slow, painful radioactive death.
This next one goes to show just how many dangers there are out in space and how much chaos can be caused when these dangers come into contact with Earth. This is a satellite image of a giant-sized crater in the Arizona desert. It's called the Barringer Crater and was created 50,000 years ago by a meteor. It's 3,900 feet in diameter and 560 feet deep. It was created with the exploding force of 2.5 million tons of TNT, which is about 150 times the force of the Hiroshima atomic blast. Just a little reminder that we're always on the verge of complete and utter destruction. So yeah, NASA really needs to get those meteor-destroying lasers made as fast as possible.
Next up, we have our inevitable doom, illustrated in a generated photo released by NASA showcasing the inevitable head-on collision of our own galaxy with a neighboring galaxy by the name of Andromeda. You might have heard of it. When this happens, it is predicted by NASA that our sun will be flung into a new region of the galaxy, leaving Earth and our entire solar system to become frigid, lifeless, and inhospitable. The event is scheduled to take place 4 billion years from now, and this information was discovered using the Hubble telescope, an extremely powerful satellite along with some extremely complicated data processing that I cannot even begin to understand because I am a YouTuber, not a rocket scientist working for NASA. Anyways, these scientists and astronomers have been able to track the trajectory of the Andromeda and the Milky Way galaxies as well as their speed, and it's looking like a head-on collision. One more thing, if you're one of those people who think 3 is a crowd, you'll be happy to know that while the majority of the cataclysmic collision will solely be between Andromeda and our own Milky Way, there is a third party at play, the Triangulum Galaxy, which is actually racing against the Andromeda in an effort to merge with the Milky Way first. Everyone wants a piece of the Milky Way.
So what would you guess this satellite image is? Could it be an alien crop circle and an ancient geoglyph? Well, it turns out it's actually a Scientology property, Trementina Base. Now, why is this on a scary things list? What can I say? I just find Scientology really creepy, especially because we really don't know exactly what goes on behind closed doors, which is extra bad considering all the dark stuff that's actually come out about this cult over the years. The purpose of this property is actually pretty silly though. According to the Church of Scientology, this huge complex is used to house the works of L. Ron Hubbard. They store all his writings there, you know, to keep him safe from all the enemy forces that want to read his books, I guess. Some of his writing has also even been etched into steel tablets and buried here. Sure, all right.
Next up, we have the CW Leonis, a dying star surrounded by an orange cloud of carbon. Carbon being the baseline of all known life. The carbon cloud was created by the star's destruction, as its outermost layers were thrown into the vast expansion of space. And the carbon itself, found in the space dust making up the carbon cloud, was created through something called nuclear fission, which took place inside of the star's interior. Now, nuclear fission happens when neutron stars smash together, creating super heavy elements, heavier than anything you're gonna find on the periodic table. When the elements break down, they give birth to organic elements, such as, in this case, carbon. This is an incredible discovery, as the CW Leonis is the closest carbon star to Earth, coming in at just 400 light years away. And the death of this star has given astronomers a chance to observe the interactions between a dying carbon star's magnetic field and its surroundings. It also shows us just how possible it is for the beginning stages of life to exist, further supporting the theory that we are not alone in this universe and possibly not even in this galaxy.
Next up, we have a mysterious red lake. It all started when satellite images showed a lake in Iraq that was pure deep red. So naturally, everyone was like, what's going on with that lake? And to this day, we still don't know 100%. Well, one possibility is pollution. There could be industrial waste and chemicals, sewage, just contaminating the lake, turning it red. Factories sometimes dump their waste into nearby water, causing all sorts of strange changes in color. There could also be something natural going on. Certain types of algae or bacteria can bloom in water and have been known to create red pigments in the water. This is known as red tide. It's usually seen in the ocean, but it can happen in lakes and rivers as well. There could also be a concentration of iron-rich minerals in the water. These minerals can oxidize and create this rusty red color. There's also another rumor that there's a place where they kill animals close to the lake, and well, you know where I'm going with that. So these explanations, they do make sense, but the exact cause is still a mystery.
And finally, we have the discovery of hidden Egyptian pyramids. In 2011, using satellite images from NASA, Sarah Perrick from the University of Alabama at Birmingham discovered 17 new structures in the famous lost city of Tanis, Egypt, which turned out to be undiscovered ancient Egyptian pyramids. Along with the pyramids, Perrick also discovered 1,000 smaller tombs located within Egypt. Using the same method, satellites, Sarah went on to discover even more hidden archaeological sites around the world. She is now hoping to discover the lost civilization of Peru and has even launched her own satellite program in 2016 called Global Explorer, that's XPLORER, to aid her in her search. The discovery of the pyramids and other ancient structures using satellite imaging has led scientists to the conclusion that, in regards to ancient ruins, we have only really found about 10% of what's actually out there. A pretty daunting and incredibly exciting fact. I just hope with this new technology we don't go unearthing ourselves any ancient curses. Fingers crossed, but I really still would like to see us find Cleopatra's tomb. So, fingers crossed with that too.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the smiley face. In February 2015, NASA published this extraordinary picture showing a cluster of galaxies that undoubtedly looks like a face. It almost looks too good to be true, like someone photoshopped it, but it is 100% legitimate. The picture was taken by NASA's Deep Space Hubble telescope. They said in a statement, "Galaxy clusters are the most massive structures in the universe and exert such a powerful gravitational pull that they wrap the space-time around them and act as cosmic lenses which can magnify, distort, and bend the light behind them. This phenomenon, crucial to many of Hubble's discoveries, can be explained by Einstein's theory of general relativity." So yeah, basically that distortion and magnification is what's causing the outline of the face and the mouth. In scientific terms, this is called an Einstein ring. Those eyes aren't actually stars either, they are entire galaxies with over 100 billion stars in them. Traveling across just one of them at the speed of light would take hundreds of thousands of years. I could go on with that, but we've only just started. Don't want to blow your minds just yet. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the man on Mars. In 1976, the Viking 1 orbiter passed over the surface of Mars and sent back pictures to Earth. The scientific community were fascinated by all of them, but one picture in particular caught people's attention. This one. Everyone who saw it saw the face, but what exactly was it? Viking 1 took this picture on its 35th orbit of Mars at an altitude of 1,162 miles. The face rises up from the surface of Mars to 2,600 feet, over twice the height of the Empire State Building. It's also 1.6 miles wide and 1.2 miles long. Conspiracy theorists believe that the face is a structure made by an ancient civilization who lived on Mars long before it became uninhabitable to complex life. NASA obviously rejects this and says that the face is nothing more than a trick of the light and some shadows. The conspiracy theorists have disagreed though, and still maintain there is a lot more to this face on Mars than meets the eye. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Sumerian. In 2015, this picture started doing the rounds online. Now at first it might not look like much, but UFO hunters believe it's the head of a fallen statue. Specifically, that it looks like an ancient Sumerian statue that you'd expect to find in ancient Mesopotamia, right here on Earth. They point to the 2 eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the typical cone-shaped beard of Sumerian statues. Now some people have taken this to the absolute extreme and believe that ancient beings may have colonized both Mars and Earth. That's why there's a similarity gravity in the beards. It's quite a far-fetched theory, I won't lie, and yeah, NASA denies it, of course. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the smiley face. We are returning to Mars again for this one. This is the smiley face that was spotted by the Viking 1 orbiter, the same mission that took the picture of the other face on Mars that we talked about earlier. Smiley face is a little bit less controversial though. Nobody, I think, is claiming that it's the product of some ancient civilization, but it is pretty interesting to look at. From directly above, the smiley face looks a lot like the famous yellow happy face sticker. I'm sure you know the one I mean. In reality though, the face is made up of a cluster of mountains inside the Galley crater, with the rim of the crater forming the outline of the face. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the crowned face. This is a famous face that's also referred to as the king's face. You're about to see why. The 11-mile wide long feature was spotted in the Libya Monte region of Mars. It's not just a face that sticks out with this picture, it's that crown too. Some people see the face as that of a woman looking to the left, while others see a few different layered faces. Interestingly, the feature that makes this face aren't actually as heavily shadowed as others we've talked about on this list so far, so it can't just be as easily dismissed as just a trick of the light. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Space Invader. In 2013, the Hubble telescope snapped this spiral galaxy that looks a lot like the face of a space invader. It's quite a strange sight to see. This galaxy is over 2 billion light years away. That means the light we see from it took 2 billion years to get here, and to us, it looks like the creature from a classic 1970s video game. I wonder if there is intelligent life somewhere in that galaxy. It's strange to think that they will probably never meet us, and all we ever know about their galaxy is that it looks like a space invader. What a strange universe we live in. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Meridiani face. This is one of the lesser known faces seen on the surface of Mars. It can be found on the Meridiani Planum, near the planet's equator, and some people believe it's of course evidence of intelligent creation. The 2 eyes looked closed, or perhaps they're squinting. There's a large nose and 2 sharp looking cheekbones as well. I don't know about everyone else, but to me, it kind of looks like the face is submerged underwater, or as if it's underneath like a frozen lake of ice. Kind of creepy. I just hope it doesn't open its eyes. That would be very freaky indeed. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Jovi. Now that is the nickname given to this picture that shows a pretty disturbing face across the surface of Jupiter. The stormy surface of Jupiter is always shifting and changing throughout time, but I imagine none of you have ever seen it quite like this. This image was processed by amateur scientist Jason Major. Now he jokingly titled it Jovi McJupiter Face. He produced the image by rotating it 180 degrees and orienting it from one side to the south side, if that makes sense. By doing that, the 2 huge oval storms become the eyes, and this creepy face of Jupiter is revealed. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the woman on Mars. In 2007, NASA's Spirit rover delivered this image showing what looks like a person strolling through the Martian sands. Some have said that specifically it looks like a woman. NASA admitted that although it looks like a person, it's not actually a person at all. This masked strolling figure is actually a craggy rock formation. Of course, conspiracy theorists disagree with this. They admit that the figure is probably made out of rock, but they say it's the statue of a female figure made by aliens. The Planetary Society was quick to call the object an optical illusion and an example of pareidolia, the tendency for our minds to assign familiar patterns to random shapes or sounds. I think that might just pretty much sum up this whole video. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Goblin. That's the name that I'm giving this face that was spotted inside a cave on Mars by NASA's Curiosity rover. This picture was taken in 2016 and quickly spread across the internet. UFO hunters started discussing the possibility of it being an alien creature. Scott Waring, editor of UFO Sightings Daily, believes that this is an important find. He spends hours every day going through the many images that NASA publishes online. Mr. Waring told his followers that if this really was a creature in the cave, then it would be about 3 inches in height by his calculation. A 3-inch Martian. Now, that's possible, but as with many of the others on our list, his creepy face may just be a rock. I don't know.
But coming in at number 10, what came before the Big Bang? So the Big Bang was what started the universe billions of Earth years ago. But what came before that? We honestly don't really know, and our smartest minds theorize the answer is extremely simple. Stephen Hawking noted that the answer could literally be nothing. We have no observable evidence of what came before everything. I come from the Top 10 Nerd channel, and this question has been answered in different ways in comic books. In Marvel, they say that we are in a version of the cosmos, meaning there was a previous version that ended up getting destroyed and remade. But if that's the case, what's doing the destroying and the remaking? If nothing came before, then what the heck caused the Big Bang in the first place? If there was something before, what would that do to the way we think about the universe? And if something is responsible for it all, I don't know if our tiny little human brains could actually handle that. Number 9, gravity paradox. This question is a pretty simple one, but yet it's got a lot of scientists kind of completely stumped. Why can a refrigerator magnet defy an entire planet's gravitational pull? It's basically asking why gravity can be such a strong force in the universe but also be such a weak one in other instances. Some scientists believe that gravity may well be as strong as other forces like electromagnetism and the force that holds the nucleus together, but they think that gravity's influence is dissipated because it leaks into extra dimensions. That's just a theory though, because we actually have no idea. That one little question about refrigerator magnets has kind of brought the whole idea of gravity into question. If it is being dissipated into extra dimensions, that opens up way more questions than it actually answers. Obviously, I'm not smart enough to answer this question. I am, after all, just a YouTube host, not a scientist, but I would just think it's all subjective, right? Like, a planet is so huge that the things that are on the planet would have to follow different gravitational rules, right? And like a magnet is still being affected by the Earth's gravity, it's just so small in comparison that it can do its own thing? I'm literally talking out my butt right now. I honestly don't know what I'm talking about. We should just move on before I make myself sound more dumb than I already am. Number 8, how big is the universe? I don't know if you guys have seen that clip from Pete Holmes' stand-up routine, but he talks about how none of any of this makes any sense. The universe is constantly expanding and infinitely. Infinity is getting bigger, and like Pete says, that makes no freaking sense. If the universe is constantly expanding, and we know it's constantly expanding, then when posed with the question of how big the universe is, someone would be able to give you an answer, but we don't actually have a number for that because we literally don't know the shape of the universe, and we don't know the actual rate at which the universe is expanding. We just know that it is. To me, this question almost doesn't matter for most of us, because even if we were to try to go to the edge of the universe, no one here can live long enough to make that journey. It takes roughly 9 to 12 years to get to Pluto, and that's just the furthest planet, yes, I'm calling it a planet, in our solar system, which itself is just an extremely tiny speck in our Milky Way galaxy, which is also just a tiny speck in the vastness of the universe. It's all too big. Is what I'm basically saying here. Number 7, expansion. The last point does lead me nicely into this next point though, which is the fact that while we know the universe is constantly expanding, we can't actually put a pin on the rate at which it is actually expanding. For the past 6 years, the Hubble Space Telescope has been calculating the speed at which the universe is expanding, and recently came up with what is accepted as the most precise measurement to date, except that the rate stands in direct conflict with independent measurements of the early universe's expansion. That's unsettling for astrophysicists because it means we know even less about our universe and its ways than we thought we did. But if we do learn this one, would that be a good thing? Or would it just help us all feel more and more meaningless and tiny? Of course, these are scientific questions, so our emotions about these things aren't really important, but I'm just saying, I already feel small and insignificant. Number 6, the multiverse. If you have been keeping up with the MCU, then you are at least familiar with the idea of a multiverse. Essentially, it means that if you go far enough into the universe, things would have to start repeating because there's only a finite number of ways that particles can be arranged in space and time. According to theories, the universe is flat and infinite, so those particles would have to repeat, creating another universe with another Earth and, yes, another you. And because it's all infinite, there would be infinite versions of you who could be doing the exact same things as you right now, or maybe they wore different clothes today, or had a completely different job, or honestly, there are an infinite number of variables here. The thing is, we will most likely never know if this theory is true or not. And even if we did, that means there would be an evil alternate you, or maybe you are the evil alternate one. I don't know about that one, man. I don't like that. Number 5, what the heck is dark matter? Dark matter gives out no light, or at least too little light for us to detect. We know it exists because we see the effect of its gravity on the stars and the galaxies, like the Milky Way, which could not have dragged in enough matter to make its own stars in the 13.82 billion years since the Big Bang without there being a lot of invisible matter whose extra gravity helped speed things along. I hope that wasn't too confusing. The European Space Agency Planck satellite found that dark matter accounts for 26.8% of the mass energy of the universe compared with the 4.5% of normal atomic matter. This basically means that dark matter outweighs the visible stars and galaxies that we can actually see by a factor of about 6. And yet, no Earth-based experiment has found any evidence of dark matter at all. And we have been looking for a long time. It's totally possible that our theory of matter, or more likely our theory of gravity, needs to be reworked and fiddled with. It's also possible that maybe the universe is filled with dark stars and dark planets and dark life. What does that even mean? I don't know. Do you know? Because I don't. Number 4, what is time and does it even exist? So, when we talk about time, we imagine it flowing, like a river, like a time stream. But for something to flow, by definition, it has to flow with respect to something else, like how a river flows with respect to a river bank. So, does time flow with respect to something else? Another kind of time? Maybe? I don't know. The idea seems kind of stupid and kind of just made up, but most likely the flow of time is an illusion that we created on our own with our brains to organize the information constantly flooding in through our senses. We also have a strong sense of a shared past, present, and future. However, the idea of a common present, meaning the time right now that everyone's in, doesn't actually exist in our understanding of relativity. Precisely how someone else's time is sliced up depends on how fast they are moving relative to you or the strength of the gravity they are experiencing. These effects are only really noticeable with things like the speed of light and supermassive gravity, which is why they are not super obvious to us in everyday life. But it basically means the idea that one person's interval of time is not the same as another person's, and that one person's interval of time is not the same as another's. If you watch Interstellar, there's a pretty basic explanation of this, as different members of the crew age differently as they split up to different places around a massive black hole and other planets whose gravities affect all the characters differently time-wise. It's just, my brain hurts actually a lot right now. Number 3, do we have everything wrong? Isaac Newton's theory of gravity was accurate enough to fly spacecraft to the moon, but it began breaking down when extremely high speeds and very strong gravitational fields became known to us. Then, Einstein's theory of general relativity came in and was a better alternative. It correctly describes the bending of starlight by gravity, the orbital decay of binary pulsars, and the warping of space-time around a black hole. Really cool stuff like that. General relativity is currently physicists' best theory of gravity, but it doesn't answer everything, obviously, which is why history will probably repeat itself and physicists might discover small effects that would hint at an even better theory of gravity. Einstein's theory has passed most of the things that might test it with flying colors, but physicists will keep putting their theories on the rack. One day it may even fail, not being completely wrong, but just one small part to a bigger puzzle that none of us will be alive to learn the answer to. Number 2, Earth, Martians. Oh boy, this one's a doozy. Okay, so look, we take it for granted that life on Earth actually began here. We just kind of assume that that's the way things worked. But that's not actually necessarily accurate. Apparently, scientists are actually finding evidence that life on Earth may have instead come from Mars, and was brought to this planet by like a meteorite at some point in Earth's incredibly long history. The trouble is that scientists themselves can't even agree on which area of science will provide the answer to this conundrum, and let alone whether science is even where we should look to answer it, which, like Pete said about the universe's expansion, that makes no frickin' sense. What do you mean? What do you mean we can't? What? Number 1. Aliens. Since the early 1960s, scientists have theorized that it's extremely likely that intelligent life exists outside of Earth, and I for one totally agree. The math kind of has to mean it's true. The universe is ever expanding, infinite, and contains countless other galaxies just like ours, with planets that would be in the similar position as ours is to their sun, and with the right conditions for life to actually thrive and grow, like the planet Kepler 186f, which you should look up if you haven't before. It's kind of cool. The trouble is that we have basically zero scientific evidence to prove that the life could potentially exist or does in fact exist. In fact, we have no hard scientific evidence that any life exists outside of Earth. Although with that planet, we actually just can't see that far down onto like the surface of the planet to see what's going on. So it could be there, we just can't see it. Although we are finding some fun stuff on Mars that may say otherwise. The time may be drawing closer and closer to when science confirms that there is life elsewhere in our solar system or the galaxy, or at least somewhere in the universe. And I really hope I'm alive for that. The thing that gets me though is if whatever is out there is advanced enough to see us too, and if it is advanced enough to see us, then is it advanced enough to make it here? And if that's the case, then we are not as advanced as that, and we should stand no chance in defending ourselves against something like that, assuming they would want to hurt us, which as humans we would just assume they would, and if they didn't, I think our stupid human brains wouldn't be able to handle the fear of not knowing, and we'd do something dumb like attack them, and then we'd be gone because we just can't stand up to that kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? That's all the time I've got. I need a nap or to just sit down because that was a lot, so I'll catch you on the flippy flop, and stay safe out there, and don't think about space too much.
Create a video using exactly this script. Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video about the infamous megalodon. Is it still alive possibly? Click the video now to find out more. You won't be disappointed with what you find out. The megalodon might be out there and we have all the proof you need in the next video.